I don't like fighting phantoms, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
Institutional racism is a meaningless phrase. Libraries are not racist. Schools are not racist. You have to show me a law, a policy, a person who's racist.
But I'm saying in the past, it was not hard to identify the problem.
Yes.
This is the point that I'm making. Why is it so much harder to identify the problem now than it was before? The answer is because things have been mitigated, and now people struggle to actually identify the problem. So instead, they prefer to talk in vague terms, and then they can invoke government action. Okay, there have been no studies, and really, I've looked at these studies, the connection between what they call implicit bias, this is their favorite phrase now, implicit bias, unconscious bias, and biased behavior has yet to be proven at any level that is even remotely necessary to be used in, for example, a courtroom. I don't think that every thought manifests in behavior.
If you have your children in a school and they talk about equity, diversity, white privilege, systemic racism, any of that, you take your children out of the class. They're not being educated, they're being indoctrinated.
I agree with that completely.
You hear all the time about women being denied access to positions of power, and that's the consequence of prejudice and oppression. It's like, yeah, everything is caused by the same thing. These people who are running things, the vast majority of them first are self-made and second, they're so bloody efficient and smart, you cannot believe it. And they work 80 hours a week, and most of them happen to be men.
I am all about equal opportunity. What Ginsburg is talking about there is equal outcome. I couldn't care less. I care about the most qualified person for the job. I think that's a big
100%.
reason why young women, and particularly young men, the dangers that we're seeing now, reject this idea of feminism, reject this idea of privilege and advantages because they see a lot of disadvantages that men experience, not as a result of patriarchy, but as a result of feminism, because of that mindset.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Sand and Levy find that the classroom teachers tend to give the girls lower grades in math than the external teachers, and they give the boys higher grades. Now, since the external teachers don't know the gender of the students, this suggests that the classroom teachers are biased. They're giving the girls lower math grades than they deserve.
We see that it discourages girls from pursuing to high-level courses in science and mathematics, and we see the opposite effect on boys.
Expectations affect teachers' moment-to-moment interactions with kids.
If Billy is one of the kids for whom there's favorable expectations and there's a long pause before there's an answer, it's almost as though the teacher were thinking, wow, Billy is sure a thoughtful kid, and gives more time to reply.
Teachers also give the students that they expect to succeed more approval and more specific feedback.
The teachers say, oh no, that's not quite right, Johnny. You had it almost right, but, and then Johnny is taught what the quite right answer would be.
Essentially, in 1,000 small, almost invisible ways, teachers teach kids they expect to succeed more, and they're also warmer. They smile, touch, and nod to those kids more.
It's not magic, it's not mental telepathy. It's very likely these thousands of different ways of treating people in small ways every day.
A lot of business in Silicon Valley gets done outside the office. So we're talking about the bar, the hotel lobby, the conference, the party, the hot tub. But what woman wants to get into a bikini and pitch a business in a hot tub? For many of the women, they felt like they were sort of damned if they did, damned if they didn't. You know, if they participate, they're disrespected or discredited. And if they don't go, they're missing out on an opportunity to network with powerful people.
Yolanda Spivey's a black woman. She was unemployed 2 years. She applied to over 300 open jobs. She did not get a single response. She goes back in, she creates a fake applicant named Bianca White, fills in the identical employment history, identical resume, identical education as her real self, Yolanda Spivey. And then she puts white on the diversity questionnaire. In 1 week, she received 9 phone calls as Bianca White and none as African-American Yolanda Spivey.
What was the percentage of women in venture capital when you were there?
I believe it was about 6%. There are a lot of, like 1,000 cuts in little small things that would make it very hard for women to be successful. So women were asked to take notes at meetings and men were not.
Accounts not being given equitably.
Women were asked to do some of the menial tasks of organizing events and planning conferences, but the men were not. So when it came time to invest, which was the work that you would get recognized and promoted for, women
And compensated for.
And compensated for, it was much harder for women to be taken seriously, and it was harder to get investments through, and it was harder to be successful.
As you grow, you have these highly original founders who start to clone themselves. And cultural fit becomes a proxy for hiring people who think and act just like I do. So it leads to groupthink, and you end up weeding out diversity of thought.